Welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Lens. This is Jake along with Scott, and we've ventured to downtown Louisville to join our next guest. Scott is in heaven right now because we are at the Bernheim Distillery, and Conor O'Driscoll is our guest today. Conor, thanks for joining the Bourbon Lens.
Great to be here, guys.
So Scott, I have to ask, do you feel like you have superpowers right now?
I feel like I'm in Heaven Hill.
On the hill in heaven.
Yes, exactly. Now this has been exciting. We reached out to the team early on in 23 because if you've been following along with us, this is year 5. We started our Instagram and social media following in September of 2018, and this episode is going to go live in September for Bourbon Heritage Month. And so we couldn't think of a better brand to kick this off for our 5-year anniversary than Heaven Hill. The bourbon, according to Scott.
Bourbon of choice of Bourbon Lens podcast.
Yes, that is true.
Love that. Yeah. Well, happy birthday.
Yeah.
For start, and thank you for the support.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's so good because I think we've appreciated the entire time. It's a whiskey and a bourbon that approaches every category. Mm-hmm. The beginner to the extremist of I want to find the crazy stuff, I want to spend the big money. Like you all have the whole portfolio, and I think that's what's a lot of fun.
It is, and it's so much fun to be part of that. We got great stuff on every shelf at the liquor store.
Yeah, and you can't go wrong. Like we always say, it's Old Fitz prime season when summer comes.
I love that
because it's 80 proof. It got plenty of flavor, and you just buy the bottle and you're ready to go, and you got it for a while. Yeah. So we are recording this during Thunder over Louisville. So if you hear jets fly over, we will do our best to edit those out.
We're going to duck and cover.
We are not in a war zone. It sounds like that at the moment.
It definitely does. So real quick, before we dive into Heaven Hill itself, obviously people will say Conor O'Driscoll, and they've probably heard the story 1,000 times before. But Conor, can you just give a little bit about your background and how you got into whiskey and to Louisville, Kentucky?
All right. So I'm a chemical engineer, grew up in Ireland. And like you said, I've told the story a lot, so people have probably heard it. But I was working as an engineer for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals in Ireland, and they sent me to Terre Haute, Indiana for a 4 to 6 month assignment. 6 years later, I quit, rode my motorcycle across the country, ended up in Colorado for the winter, came back to Louisville for Derby, met my wife, and moved to Louisville. I always said that if this American experiment didn't work out, it would be cool to go back to Ireland, go back to Dublin, and get a job making Guinness. Once I met Kim, I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. So this bourbon thing looks kind of cool. And that was early 2000s. Yeah. And it literally took 2 years of knocking on doors before Brown-Forman hired me, because back in those days, there was no boom, there was no tourism, there were no podcasts. Hell, there was no internet, I don't think, even in those days. Maybe there was. There probably was. But
it went like this.
Exactly. Yes. You've got mail.
Yeah.
But Brown-Forman hired me, and kind of haven't looked back since. And I mean, literally the prime impetus was this could be fun. Yeah. And that might be the understatement of anyone's career. It's been 19 years and change now, and it's been more fun every day.
That's awesome. And that's kind of like the American dream, right? You didn't know that you were going to have your American dream.
Yeah, but for an Irishman,
like, what is Indiana?
Yeah. The home of Larry Bird.
Exactly, yeah.
Indiana State. Yeah.
Go Sycamores.
Yeah, there you go. See, look, it's my one thing I know about Terre Haute. So, that brings us to today, sitting here at the iconic distillery of Bernheim. And so what's it like to represent, on the back of this DSPKY1?
We're number one.
Yeah. Like, what's it like to, you take this fun dream and here you are 19 and some 19 and some change later. Yeah. What's it like to be here at like the epicenter of bourbon?
Without sounding redundant, it's really fun. I'm super lucky. I mean, I get to, be the face of the team here. We were talking before we started recording, like if I'm in New York or wherever, the team are still here making great whiskey. And, they're just a great bunch of people to work with. The distillery runs 24/7, somewhere more than 300 days a year. It's a very busy place, but we have got just a fantastic crew here. And, every single person, distillery side, warehouse side, top to bottom, left to right, they are as passionate and dedicated about making great whiskey as I am.
Yeah.
And that makes my job easy. And I get to go do the fun stuff.
Yeah. And Scott's so thankful that you all produce whiskey at like 300 days a year because that keeps his, JTS Brown on the shelves.
Yeah, if it goes away, I'll be pretty sad. So,
JTS Brown, one of our bonded products, we have more bonded whiskeys than almost everybody else put together. And it's one of our, that just speaks to one of our, as it were, trademarks of just producing great whiskey at reasonable prices. Yeah. Boo-hoo, poor us. We keep winning awards, which makes our whiskeys harder to get. Like McKenna, obviously, is a perfect example of that. And McKenna is, it's such a good whiskey, but if you can't get it, look out for JTS Brown or the Dant or any of those great brands that are out there.
Yeah, you can find something you'll love in the next one.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and that was the thing that was really funny to me is here you can't find Henry McKenna, but I flew out to San Francisco. It was sitting on shelves for $35.
Nice.
And I was calling friends like, hey, I know you're looking for one, and just let's be clear, this is a single barrel.
Yeah,
it's not going to be the one that won San Francisco, but it's going to be pretty damn good.
You'll never be disappointed with it.
Exactly,
it's always great.
So, I had friends, and I think I brought back like 7 or 8 bottles, and I was like, I'm getting close to like hazmat
seriously.
on the on the plane. So, had to diversify the bottles that went into the luggage on the way home. So, that's just, one of the crazy things that's happened. But you also do a lot of innovation, and I think about this because recently it was the 20-year-old mellow corn. But it's a 20-year-old corn whiskey.
20-year-old corn whiskey.
The mellowest of corn.
The mellowest of corn. Yeah, it's mellow corn's wiser, older, more sophisticated big brother.
Yeah. He's been through the ringer.
Yeah.
So what's it like to find those unique projects in the inventory to be able to bring those to life?
So one of the panels that I work with is the innovation team. And again, this is across the company. We've got people in production planning, marketing, sales, our brand ambassadors, Bernie and Jack sit on that panel when they're available, our tasting people, here and down in Bardstown. So it is a very collaborative effort. We kind of all have to agree that it's worthy of, whether it's a Parker's or an Old Fitz or Heaven Hill Heritage Collection. But this one, the 20-year-old corn whiskey, was great because, we'd been tasting it. They've been tasting it since before. I've been with the company a little over 4 years now. And I think I first tasted that when it was 17 years old. And, what they say is that up to like Bernie Lubbers, I don't know if you probably know. Everyone knows Bernie, right?
Yeah.
He was telling me that at 15 years, it tasted exactly like mellow corn. But then at 17 years, the magic happened. You think it's corn whiskey in a used barrel.
Yeah.
So all that stuff we're used to with the new barrel, impacting a lot of flavor into the whiskey quickly, just doesn't happen with the used barrel. And at 17 years, all the magic started to happen. Like, this stuff is special.
Yeah.
So, we kept a close eye on it over the next, couple of years and brought it out as a 20-year-old. And, you guys have obviously tasted it, but it's the more sophisticated big brother. But, when you've got, we're very close to 2 million barrels in inventory right now. Yeah. And it's not enough.
Yeah.
Only 2 million,
thing.
right?
If only they were a few years older, each one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. The two things you need in this business are more whiskey on a time machine so you can go back and make more whiskey, right?
Yeah.
But having that inventory available, and then 87 years of whiskey making knowledge and expertise, and just that institutional knowledge, and Heaven Hill has a 87-year reputation for kind of just being at the forefront of bringing out cool whiskeys, and when others might not have been held. The first whiskey that Heaven Hill brought out was a bottle and bond. So it's 1935. The company is founded. Wait 4 years to bring out a whiskey because we wanted, that's our DNA, high quality whiskey.
Yeah.
No, I know one of my favorite drives in Kentucky is down Bardstown Road, down to Cox Creek.
There you go.
Just passing all those barrels. It's crazy, but
we're putting up a new warehouse about every 5 to 6 months.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I said, it's one of my favorite drives. When I just need to get out and drive somewhere, I literally get on Bardstown Road because that's where I live and
Head
turn
south.
right and just head south, and there's the barrels. And then at some point I'll turn around and head back.
Nice.
But,
Nice.
So speaking of the barrel preserve, like how much room do you all have there to grow?
So that side of the street, so that was as the west side of the street is full. I think it's 14 or 15 warehouses there. I can't remember.
Yeah.
We have expanded onto the east side of the street, and we have room there as well.
just north of.
Correct.
Just
About
north
a quarter
of
mile north. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can kind of see them peeking
That's
through.
Hibbs Farm. So we got Cox's Creek on one side and Hibbs Farm on the other.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
I mean, this is we're in this for the long haul. I mean, the whiskey that's distilling right this minute, about 50 feet from where we're sitting, is going to go in a barrel for at least 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're building a new distillery that will come online in about 18 months. And whiskey from that won't be available for at least 4 years. So this is a long haul business. And again, Heaven Hill, we're all in. I mean, we're committed to supporting these great brands, growing these great brands, and continuing to kind of lead the charge for innovation.
Yeah, and I think you all have a unique proposition in the space, right? Because you're family owned, like you're not getting outside pressures to change who you all are. No. You get to be who you are. They hired Conor to say, "Hey, lead us in a direction. Make sure you got a good team behind you, and move forward." So, what's that like having the support from the family to say, "Hey, we're going to continue in this lane, and there's opportunity to innovate, obviously, but just keep making good whiskey."
It's really freeing. Obviously, the first interview I did when I took this job, like, what's the first thing you're going to do? First thing I'm going to do is not screw it up.
Change nothing.
Change nothing, right?
You saying mash bill.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we've changed nothing but changed a lot. We've increased productivity and efficiency and, consistency and quality and all that stuff, ironing out variability. But the support from the family is great. They trust me to, lead this team. They trust this team, to the whole outside pressures. If we were reporting to Wall Street every quarter, that puts huge pressure on a company and on, the hierarchy within a company to make sure you're doing the right thing. And who knows what the right thing is, because somebody who knows nothing about whiskey and about laying whiskey down for 4 years and planning on being here for 20, 50, another 100 years, whatever it is, they're looking at quarters, which doesn't really work in the whiskey business.
Yeah.
That's just a whole bunch of energy expended on not the right thing. So not having those pressures is fantastic.
Yeah.
And then again, the flexibility it gives us to make good decisions quickly, and you don't have to go through 10 layers of bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's taken you 6-12 months to make a decision you should have made 6 or 12 months ago.
Yeah. No, I always find it interesting. I recently moved from a very large company that was publicly traded to a smaller organization, and it's just so different, right? To have the owners be on phone calls, and you are having decision making happening right there, and you get to see how the tea's made or the bourbon's made in this instance, right? And so I think it's super unique to have that just experience from my work point of view, because I can get where you're coming from and making the right decisions to make the right whiskey.
Yeah. And of course, we're not a small business.
No,
we're a large producer of American whiskey, and we're an even larger supplier of beverages. So there's nothing small about what we do, but that having the third generation just took over. Kate Nanolats just took over, and you're 2 handshakes away from the founders.
Yeah.
In fact, if you shake Max's hand, you're 1 handshake away from the founders. So, and they're massively involved, massively committed, trust their team, just building out a great organization.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. So, you mentioned a key term, and I just want to, push into this a little bit. You said American whiskey, and I think that's a very unique way to say it, because it's not all bourbon, right?
Correct.
You'll have released ryes, Rittenhouse, obviously Elijah Craig rye, great ryes, But then there's this huge craze of American single malt. And I'm not pressing you to say, are you making any? I'm pressing you to say, what do you think about the opportunity for America to have another spirit that is for them, but, kind of loved by the world? Because you come from outside of the United States.
Well, so the reason I use the word American whiskey is, or the phrase, I guess, American whiskey is, we don't, like you said, we don't just make bourbon here. We make 5 styles of American whiskey regular. And actually we've made all 6 because we have made malt whiskey in the past. So we make bourbon with rye, bourbon with wheat, rye whiskey, wheat whiskey, and of course corn whiskey. And then we have malt whiskey. We haven't made it here in several years, but with the focus now on American single malt, it's entirely probable we will be making malt whiskey, American malt with single malt whiskey very soon. But one of the challenges for us, this is a large distillery, and just side note, these days, the smaller you are, the craftier you are. So people look at this as not a craft distillery, and I'll argue that every day. We craft whiskey just on a very large scale. So our fermenters, we have 17 of them. They're 124,000 gallons each. So for us to it's a big number, right? Yeah. For us to experiment, that's our lab beaker is 124,000 gallons. So we're a little handicapped there in being able to experiment. But of course, we have the Evan Williams bourbon experience down the street, and they're great to collaborate with because they can change on a dime. And we've been talking to them about if we were to make malt whiskey, how should we go about it, and can you guys test this or try that? And then on my team here we have Abby Long, who's our QC supervisor, and she's heavily involved in these discussions. So we're not actively mashing or distilling any malt whiskey today, but it's very much on our radar.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because that is a topic of conversation. It just kind of weasels its way into everything now because it's kind of front and center. It's one of those things that's just kind of like, you gotta at least ask. Yeah, it's time.
Well, there are so many great single malts in America coming out right now. I can't even remember the guys out of Washington State who kind of led the charge on this, but there's
Westland.
Thank you. Yeah, I can't remember that name, but Westland. I'll say it loud and clear. But people like those guys have kind of led the charge, and hell, we've got 16, 17-year-old malt whiskey aging right now. So it's not like we're late to the game, but as this new focus comes on it, we're keeping our eye on things, and we have options.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's one of the things that you've obviously had, right, is options, right? When we'll just look at the old Fitzgerald lineup for a second, right? You had options when it came to, hey, let's explore what it tastes like a little bit older, a little bit older. And it's one of my favorite expressions because it is the most beautiful bottle. Yeah. And it is impossible to uncork. Like you can hold the thing, the decanter, that cork ain't going nowhere. Don't try that at home.
It takes some effort to get into the bottle.
You gotta wanna.
And it was one of the bottles that I thought, because I got the 9 when it first came out. I was super excited about it, and it just had to breathe a little bit. It started one way, we all tasted it. I was like, and then I came back to it like 6 months later, and it was like this beautiful bourbon that I was like, oh, thanks. I'm glad I spent my money. And then I argue that the 15-year-old, and I've not tried the 16, 17, or 19. The 15-year-old might be my favorite bourbon I've ever drank.
Damn, thank you.
Because it's every bourbon note. Yeah. Right? It just hits the oak, vanilla, like, everyone's like, oh, those are boring notes. No, that's what bourbon is.
That's the foundation, man. The house will fall down if you don't have those.
Yeah. And it's yummy.
Yeah. Elements of it.
And that's when I was rattling off the styles of whiskey we make, I didn't mention a single brand. Yeah. Those 5 styles of whiskey ultimately become 100 or more different brands. So our bourbon with wheat, 20% wheat, we call OFD is on the production schedule. It stands for Old Fitz Distillate. And most of it's going to become larceny. Some of it's going to become larceny barrel proof, and some of it's going to become Old Fitz. And we were talked earlier about the innovation team. As we're one of the lines we're planning for is Old Fitz, the future editions of, and that one is absolutely, the whiskey tells us when it's ready.
Yeah.
And, the next one coming out, I think it's 8 or 9 years old. And the last one was 19 years old. And, just the 19 was ready then. And the next one, I can't remember, 8 or 9 years old, it's ready then. And that's another one. They're always going to be great and some are going to be spectacular.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fun because, like we always say, we want to tell the story of the distillery, but the barrels tell the story, right?
Well, the step one is to make great distillate.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You put crappy distillate in the best barrel out there, you're going to get substandard whiskey out of it at the far end. But, start with great grain, mill it, mash it, ferment it, and distill it the right way, and just make high quality, consistent distillate. And then, the barrels, we've got some great cooperage partners, and we have 70 or 70 something warehouses. Again, they're going up every 5 or 6 months. It's hard to keep track, but
5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. Well, I'm looking at the office window here at the Bernheim warehouses, and these are giant buildings. I mean, some are 8 stories tall, some are 12 stories tall. They're brick and concrete, up to 80,000 barrels each. They're not unique, but brick and concrete warehouses are not that usual in the industry.
Yeah.
But we've got those. We got old ones. Everyone's heard of Deatsville. We got Cox's Creek. We've got old ones, new ones, big ones, small ones in the country, in the city. And those are the levers that we can pull to turn our distillates into brands. And, some of the Bernheim warehouses here, because they're so big, and again, brick and concrete, the climate changes in there. We all know the story. Like Kentucky summers are hot, winters are cold, drives whiskey in and out of the wood. It happens a lot more slowly and gently in these houses. So if you're extra aging, if you're going past that 15 years, these are great warehouses for that because you don't overage it. I mean, it's a cliche at this point, that there's a lot of expensive whiskey out there with a big fat age statement on it that to me kind of tastes like a dirty old stick. It's way overaged and it's just way too woody.
Yeah.
We tend not to do that. Our extra age ones, again, they've got the wood components in them because that's part of it.
Yep.
But it's part of a balanced whole. And there's the wood component. I get a little bit of smoke on it. And if you're really good, you can start picking off those, the mint notes and the marzipan notes and all the rest of it. No need to be able to do that. Does it taste good?
Yes.
So really, really proud of these warehouses here and the good stuff that comes out of them.
Marzipan. Shout out to Fred Minnick on this episode because his new club is called the Marzipan Club.
Is it really?
He embraced that.
Yeah, he did. Oh, man.
Way to go, Fred.
Oh, man. The tasting notes that people can come up with. I'm like, I've never have I ever. Like, literally, I hadn't eaten a blackberry in probably like 2 or 3 years. And I was like, I feel like I'm getting blackberry notes. And so my son loves them. So I picked some up and then I was like, I guess I'll eat it. And I was like, okay, I was right. I don't need now. Now it'll be a little bit wild before I have another blackberry.
Yeah.
But some of you do a bottle tasting or barrel tasting with people, and it tends to be intimidating because, what if I can't pick out the blackberry notes? So I try and remind people that we're drinking whiskey. Does it taste good?
Yeah, that's what
end
of
said. Story.
Is it good?
Yeah.
And
then if you can, the hardest part is putting the adjectives to what you're tasting.
Oh yeah.
I know I've tasted this before. What the hell is that word? And then someone says blackberry, boom, that's what it is.
Yeah. Or experiences too. It's like it reminds me of.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to remind you of a particular taste. It reminds you of something you might have smelled at some point.
That's a really good point. Yeah, exactly. This tastes like, this reminds me of, my mom's apple pie.
Yeah. Yeah. One that Scott always gets, and it makes me feel like it transports me there. He's like, it smells like pipe tobacco or like my grandpa's pipe tobacco. And it's I transport myself to sitting on a front porch and having grandpa smoke a pipe.
Smoke a bowl.
Yeah. Even though my grandpa didn't do that.
Well, it's like why I like JTS Brown. I'll say this ad nauseum, but it tastes like Kentucky bourbon should taste like. That's
we should put that on a billboard somewhere.
I mean, it's pure Kentucky bourbon. If you want to know what Kentucky bourbon tastes like, I suggest picking up a bottle of JTS Brown or some other Heaven Hill bonded product. That's what Kentucky bourbon should taste like.
Nice.
So that's what I kind of benchmark everything against.
He does. That I can tell you that for 100% fact. But you have to have a base whiskey. Like there's days where I'll go in, I'm like, oh, I want to just try something and maybe write a few notes. And then I'm like, I didn't have anything to like warm my palate up. So I'm like, then I'm like, oh, I got to go pour that some more. And now I might burn my palate because it could be higher proof. And that's not necessarily my go-to drinker. I like more middled proofs.
Yeah.
Like that's just more kind of where I am, especially as we've gotten into world whiskeys and experiencing flavors worldwide at 85, 86 proof. Like you can get a lot of flavor down in those proof points. So for all the people out there that think you need barrel proof everything, you don't.
You don't. And this is a perfect segue. I have a bottle of Evan Williams Black sitting on my desk here. So we should have a little Friday afternoon tipple.
I think we do.
Let's do it.
And, you make a good point because there's a huge, can we get that?
Yeah.
Look. There's a huge drive towards the higher the proof, the better. It's got to be hazmat. Like those things can be exhausting to drink. Because you kind of got to fight the whiskey a little bit. Yeah, they're fun to drink on at the right time, but sometimes 86 proof, 4 to 5 year old bourbon.
Yeah, a little bit of corn, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of vanilla. Like it's just it's all classic.
It's Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey.
It is.
Well, here, cheers, fellas.
Cheers.
Welcome to Bernheim. Nothing wrong with that.
No,
and that's just. It's so pleasant to drink.
It is.
It's like you said, it's everything you're looking for in a bourbon. And this is the same mash bill as down to JTS Brown.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have 100 different mash bills, but when we make HH Reg, Heaven Hill Regular, 78% corn, 10% rye, 12% malted barley, and that's about 90% of what we make here. Put it away in the barrels for 4 to 27 years. Again, those are the levers we pull to turn the same distillate into all kinds of great brands.
Oh,
so then I guess getting into how the sausages make, what makes you guys, determine, okay, we believe this product's going to be an Evan Williams product, or we believe this is going to be a JTS Brown product? Are there taste profiles that the quality team have that they're seeking for that?
Short answer, yes. Longer answer, we've got, let's call it 2 million barrels aging. And, spoiler alert, nobody tastes all 2 million barrels, right? So again, 87 plus years of knowledge of how our warehouses work, how this warehouse versus that warehouse, this distillate in that house at this point. We have a lot of institutional knowledge about, that OFD on mid floors of these houses in 6 years will be larceny. When we're pulling barrels of HH Reg to make Evan Williams, we're pulling hundreds of them, and they're coming from different houses, different floors, but they're in that 4.5 to 5.5 year age. We know that put good distillate in a good barrel, age it the right amount of time under the right circumstances, and you're going to get great whiskey. Then as we get smaller batches, so Elijah Craig, 300 barrels or fewer, we're paying more attention to which specific barrels are going in there. And then it goes to the smallest batches, a single barrel, Evan Williams single barrel or McKenna single barrel, that type of stuff. They get a lot of attention. And then our master taster Tony Goatee, she's tasting batch after batch after batch every day, and she can pull a barrel sample, and before it's before it's 6 inches from her nose, she goes, that's going to be Elijah Craig. Yeah. So she's just got that wonderful experience, and she's you talk about master tasters, people who can pick these things apart and get this molecule versus that molecule. She's one of those, and we have several of those on staff. So these are when I talked at first about the team that is behind all these great whiskeys. It's the team at the distillery, it's the team in the warehouses, the team on the bottling line. It is 1,000 people behind this. And, I get to be the lucky SOB that gets to go out and be on the podcast and stuff. But,
and open bottles and drink whiskey.
Exactly. Yeah.
More than a pretty face.
Yeah. We're not drinking here. We're working.
Yeah, exactly. So, I have to ask, so in your 4.5, like your time here, your 4 years or so, what's been the product that you've been most proud to be a part of? And not saying it's your favorite, but it's like, it was kind of cool to see this come to life.
That's a great question. So let me think. The first quote new product that I was involved with was Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel, and actually see those bottles there on the shelf. Yeah, those are beta tests. Those are in process testing for, we worked with Independence Dave. We said, we've got Elijah Craig. We know and love that brand. If we were to do a barrel finish, we would like to explore these flavor profiles or these flavor notes. So they delivered back 3 different toast profiles. We put Elijah Craig in them and finished it over several months. And every week, a new one of those bottles would show up, and we'd sit here. My team would sit here and taste it. Different teams around the company would taste it, and over 3 or 4 or 5 months, however long it was, we selected one barrel. And they, as each of them went along, they were kind of changing at different rates and in different ways. But we picked whatever barrel it was, and then repeated the process to see what the ideal window for toasted barrel would be. And that's what toasted barrel is now. So that was the first product that I was involved with, as it were, since I got here. But now that I've passed my 4-year window, all the bottle and bonds are starting to be whiskey that was made while I was here. Yeah. And that's kind of cool. Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to, years to come as the milestones go by. It's like, all right, McKenna's 10-year-old. I've been here 10 and a half years. That's cool. So that's very gratifying.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to need a bottle of that for my bar.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he's going to need a barrel for his bar.
My own barrel, my own private barrel.
He's got to get a system that taps in, and then you just glug, 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 glug.
Kegerator.
Yeah, exactly. for the barrel. No, I mean, that's got to be so cool, like gratifying. Like I remember when Toasted Barrel came out, like as someone media, I'm using air quotes over here, podcaster, like it was fangirl city. Like everyone was like, Toasted Barrel, I can't find it. Da, 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 da. And then it slowly started to show up on more shelves, and you were able to get it. But it's really cool that Elijah Craig has been a profile that you all have experimented with, like whether that's through the single barrel program with that, or through the rye whiskey or the toasted barrel. It's been fun to see how that brand has evolved and grown.
It really is. And we just passed 500,000 cases on it. So it's not just me talking here. The public love it, and thank you to each and every one of them. And again, I keep harping on the team. The team behind every brand we bring out, but like the shout out to the Elijah Craig marketing team. They're doing some great stuff. We've got partnership with Max Homan, the USPGA, and a couple of things like that. So I'm not a golfer, but I get it. That's that's a really good win for us. And we're doing a bunch of cool stuff there. And it just, that type of exposure this whiskey deserves, because it's such a good whiskey. And, hey, everybody, Elijah Craig is awesome. Go out and buy it.
And it's a perfect session whiskey for your golf game. So make sure,
maybe I should play golf.
It's a perfect liquid lubricator.
And so this is going to air in September. Like typically, the first week of October is around about the first part of October. Anyways, Elijah Craig Old Fashioned Week makes a great old fashioned. Yeah, and that's a nationwide program, and fun as hell to be part of. So.
There we go. So just make sure when this comes out that you're looking forward to that first week, so you can make your Elijah Craig Old Fashions, and you can tag #Bourbon Lens, and we'd love to see what that's all about.
And we didn't even speak about the seasonal releases.
Oh yeah,
Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, which have all but evaporated from shelves.
So we have 3 barrel proofs now. We got Elijah Craig, we got Larceny, and the new Bernheim wheat. Wheat whiskey. So again, there's a couple of wheat whiskeys out there, not very many, but our Bernheim wheat whiskey has been around for years and years and years, 7-year-old whiskey, and we just brought out the barrel proof, and that thing is great.
Yeah. And so let's you mentioned it, so let's talk about it. The Bardstown Bourbon Collection the Bardstown Collection this year was featuring a 6-year-old 100 proof wheat whiskey, which I think was the most unique of the 6. Like it just was tropical fruit, and just like it wasn't what I expected at all when I picked it up. And
where did that citrus note come from?
Where did it?
Right?
Yeah. So the flavoring grains just do some crazy stuff. Yeah. The wheat does some weird things, and it was great on the heels of, coming off of Jim Beam's product, which was like just straight, peanut butter, like liquid peanut butter, and then going to that.
Their one was great. It was like the 10, 11, and 12 millionth barrels or something. Very cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. The Bardstown Collection is awesome. Like, love all the distilleries that collaborate in it. But I would say you all and Jim Beam just by far had the most unique and
thank you.
best of the night that I experienced.
So next year is going to be Heaven Hill bringing out the what number millionth barrel?
So we are probably July, August this year. We'll hit number 10 million.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. That's exciting.
That's insane.
So
Now, so speaking of that, and I know we do have to wrap up because he's got an important phone call here in a little bit. But what's the news still going to mean to you all as far as capacity? Like how will that make you all grow quicker?
So this distillery, we can make 1,500 barrels a day, somewhere above 400,000 barrels a year, and it's not enough.
Yeah.
The new distillery that we're building in Bardstown should be online the end of 24, and it's going to be a 3-phase project. Phase 1 is another 500 barrels a day, so 10 million proof gallons a year, and each phase will be 10 million proof gallons. So think about that. If assuming the growth continues and we have 2 distilleries making over 400,000 barrels a year, we might be in a spot where we can make 1 million barrels in a year.
Wow.
It's nuts to think of.
Head scratching.
Yeah. I mean, literally every meeting, capacity meeting we have about the new distillery, we get, okay, phase 1 doesn't sound like that much more, it's another 150,000 barrels. Okay, that's really, we can put our heads around that. But when you get to phase 3, and we might be making 950,000, maybe 1 million barrels a year, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah. You're like, where do you put that?
Yeah.
You're
more and more warehouses. Yeah.
More and more warehouse. Pick up the phone. We're going to need another one.
Yeah. But, like I said, Elijah Craig just passed 500,000 cases. Evan Williams that we're drinking right now, north of 3 million cases. Larceny is rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Those are Evan Williams is the number 2 bourbon in the world, and we barely export any of it.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of like really aggressive strategies coming up. We've got, again, the 87 years of skill and expertise doing it. We've got the horsepower here. We're adding horsepower down there. No pun intended as we come up on Derby.
Yeah.
But
you can hear the jet flying over.
Yeah. We'll keep that in there for dramatic effect.
Exactly.
And if you want Evan Williams in bottled and bond, you can get that.
Yeah.
White label.
Don't give away all the secrets.
I'm giving away it. It's gorgeous, and it's like $17.
I can still find that regularly.
It's the best beer and a chaser whiskey out there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's such a good.
That should be everyone's closing time whiskey, is according to Conor O'Driscoll.
Yeah, you heard it first.
Just like Miller's like the official beer of shower time. This is Evan Williams White Label is the official whiskey or bourbon of closing time.
I love it.
Oh man, no, that's great. Well, man, we truly appreciate the opportunity to come and hang out and talk Heaven Hill. It's been something that we've talked about anecdotally on the podcast a ton.
It's been a long time coming.
It has.
Oh,
yeah.
Let's not wait 5 years for the next one, right?
No, but I don't think a lot of teams don't have what you all have from a PR perspective. So, shout out to Lauren.
Yeah,
she's been awesome through this entire process, making sure we could get set up with you. And I think the media teams behind these brands, especially here at Heaven Hill, need a lot of love. And Lauren is our main contact that we work with. So shout out to Lauren.
You're going to have to shout over the F-15 or whatever is zooming by.
Shout out over the airplane that just went over there. But just wanted to give her some love there.
Lauren and her whole team.
Yeah.
Caitlin, LP, Hannah, I think that's everybody. Laura, they're all rock stars.
Yeah.
I know they help make my life easy. So thank you to them.
No, well, we truly appreciate everyone for listening to this episode, our first episode in our series for Bourbon Heritage Month, as well as our 5-year anniversary podcast. As always, you can find out more about Bourbon Lens on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bourbon Lens. If you want to go over to our website and find out more about our reviews and any breaking bourbon news, go over to bourbonlens.com. And last but not least, if you want to be a part of our growing Patreon community, go over to patreon.com/bourbonlens and sign up today. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers, fellas. Thank you.
Thank you.